Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Tell Your Story. I'm your host, Todd Nesloni, the Director of Culture and Strategic Leadership at TEPSA. And each episode, I look to bring you a different guest who has encouraged, inspired, or challenged me in one way or another, and bring them on to share some of their story in hopes that it inspires you to share some of yours. I'm thrilled for this episode's guest, who is also one of my friends from high school. And so please welcome Weston Woodward on. Weston, tell everybody kind of who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, Todd, thanks so much for having me. What do I do? I try to answer that most succinctly. I call myself a connector, but now I'm moving into starting a film studio here in Austin, Texas.
Man, I didn't even know that. Okay, I've got so many questions here. And so, Weston, when we were in school and when you were a kid, what did you kind of envision yourself doing? Like, did you see yourself kind of where you are now, or did you have other ideas and goals?
I think growing up, mostly I knew that I had this thirst for travel and like wanting to live abroad. So I always thought that I'd be like a missionary or working overseas somewhere, working with people, because that's what I really love about what I do now.
So how did that lead into, because you do a lot with the tech sphere, you do a lot with social media and all kinds of stuff. So how'd that lead to what you're doing now?
What's interesting is, after college, I went to the University of Texas, studied history, and had no idea what I wanted to do with history. I didn't really want to go into the education field. So I did what any normal person would do. I moved to the Dominican Republic, and I ended up working at a school of all places and teaching English and PE. And when I got back, I still was in that same mindset, like, what do I do with what I've learned and what I love? And I had like 8 jobs or 8 career paths the last, 13 years. And the running thread, though, through them all, be it politics, government, the tech scene, a creative agency, was people. And finally, like 3.5 years ago, I decided, you know what, I need to focus on that, like what I'm strong at with people. So I left, and I've been like this freelance connector, business development, salesperson, producer of sorts.
Well, and it's funny that you talk about all the different paths you kind of went down to see if it was really the one for you. And there's so much research out there right now that talks about, our generation and the current generation, how that's a normal thing. You look back at our parents or our parents' parents, and it's like once they got into a job, they were there for most of their life. But with us and generations after us, we hop around and we try different things. And so what do you feel like was really a positive to come out of you trying all those different things?
Well, I'll say, especially when I first left my last W-2 job, it was like, where do I begin? But thankfully, I had a vast network of working in various industries, not just across the US, but across the globe. So it provided, like, I guess all my career I've been building up to this moment to like go off on my own. And because I had all those jobs, I had this vast and interesting network to kind of poke from time to time. So I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't changed jobs as much as I had.
Yep. And, and I think that's one of the things that, I remember when I wanted to try some different things, my mom freaked out because she's like, no, like, what if that doesn't work? What if, like, you're in something secure right now? You don't want to take those risks and jump out of that. Did you have family sometimes kind of be like, Weston, what are you doing? Like, we're trying something again here?
Oh, yeah. No, 100%. No, I will say this. My parents have been the most encouraging folks for my career journey. But also, like, my parents met in a traveling music group through Southeast Asia. So, like, they kind of had the idea of, like, crazy adventure. So they've always been super supportive. I've had a lot of, like, critics, people on the periphery that have, like, questioned, like, what the heck is Weston doing now? And not seeing any correlation. But now, as long as my family is happy with what I'm doing, I'm happy with what I'm doing. I don't care what the other people think.
So it's in your genes, obviously, coming from your parents.
Yeah.
Well, do you ever see yourself going back overseas?
I think eventually I would love to. So I after living in the Dominican Republic, I really had a strong connection to the island, to the people, the culture. So I do see myself probably moving back down there, maybe like in 10 years.
Yeah.
But I love Texas. Texas is definitely like my home, and especially Austin. So I'll probably always have at least an outpost here.
So, thinking of the different opportunities you've had and all the connections and everything like that, what do you feel is one of the more challenging career paths that you chose?
I would say, when I worked for the government, I worked for a state representative here in Austin, and it was a very rewarding experience to learn
Mhm.
how the legislative process happens. But it's very difficult. You're not making much money. You're dealing with very hot topic issues, and you're crunching just a lot of data and a lot of like having to read so much. That was probably the most challenging career or job that I had over my career.
And so you're entering a new endeavor. So
Yeah.
tell me more about this.
Yeah, so it's kind of wild. About 13 years ago, I watched this movie called Chalk, which was actually
Uh-huh.
filmed here in Austin. It was about a high school teacher, and one of my mentors at the time was a producer on it. And I always, after watching that, I was like, man, one day I would love to be a producer. And just over the years, especially like my last W-2 was a creative agency, I would see some of the doc work we were doing and the commercial work, and I was really excited and enthralled by the medium that was TV and film. And then about a year ago, I met my now business partner, and it just was like, it's definitely a God thing. Like, right moment, right time. We met our investor, and my business partner had a script, and so we just kind of running with this. We're actually producing a web series with a notable author right now, and then also beginning an animation project for a Christmas film.
When we look at people who are creating things like that, I hear, and I'm such one thing that people may not know about me is I am such an entertainment buff. Like, I literally all day consume news and information about TV and music and movies and things like that. Like, if I was not in education, I'd be doing something in the entertainment field. And so I find it so interesting that so many people get their start now with web series or doing something in that kind of way. And so what interested you in starting with a web series?
Well, we are in the middle of a pandemic, so our talent, our author, he can't film right now. And of course, with production restrictions, like we weren't able to get a film crew up to his home. And so we're like, well, let's just sit around and wait for this to kind of open up. Let's go ahead and just start creating.
Yeah.
And so we're just like, you know what? Let's give it a go. And so we've been recording some episodes. Nothing's released yet.
Yeah.
But it's been a fun process to actually have a solid and positive focus during this time.
So what's the name of your company?
It's called Cork Studios.
And where'd that come from?
A few different reasons. One of our partners, his last name is Buoy, so buoyancy, so something that's buoy. And then my other partner, she's Irish, and so she's like Cork, Ireland. And then we're also like big wine aficionados. And then
I was wondering if the wine was going to come in here some way.
yeah, and then also I would say for me, like I just my life, like leading up to this point, has been a little chaotic too. So one of the words that this author had told me was like, Weston, you just need to be a cork in the waves. And then it just like really stuck. And I was like, that's got to be the name of our studio.
And I love that that name means something personal to several of you, and that there's that kind of, I think that's such a cool moment of just more ownership in that. And so, going through this new endeavor, this new risk, what are you learning about yourself that's new?
I would say, I haven't been like a traditional producer in the past. So like part of it was like, would I be able to do this? Do I have the skill set necessary? Do I have, the affirmation from other people in the industry that, yeah, you can produce. And that quickly was nipped in the bud by my business partner, because she said like, Weston, I would have chosen you if you couldn't do it. And so, but yeah, I would say that was definitely came across my mind a bunch.
Well, we live in a day and age where our kids are learning everything on YouTube. So when it comes to like producing and stuff, do you learn from YouTube sometimes too?
I learn a lot from my business partners. They, one ran a media agency for a while, and then the other one has been in the film and TV market for a while. And so I'm just soaking up as much as I can, and listening to other friends in the industry, and just learning through the process.
So what's your big goal or your big dream with Cork?
I would say creating some impactful pieces. We really want to create content that's going to point people towards a higher purpose. Be it, for me personally, be pointing people towards, God ultimately, but also just creating some positive content for kids, for families, for adults, just because, especially right now, like and during this pandemic, we're seeing just how negative a lot of our culture can be, especially in the news and the stuff you watch on TV. And so we want to create something that is more positive.
I love that. And, if there are people who might be listening today that are like, I want to dip my toe in the creative world, whether that's graphic design or producing or creating something, where would you even suggest people begin if they want to kind of start tiptoeing and seeing if that's for them?
I think ultimately, if you really have that burning desire to create inside of you, to start doing it. Don't wait.
Yeah.
Start working on your own projects, and find friends, find colleagues that want to collaborate with you. I definitely, I love having two business partners to run alongside with, and not be doing this on my own. So I say, like, the more the merrier. You'll go further with more people attached with you. So just start creating. That's the hardest part, is like just the starting portion.
Well, and knowing that when you do get started, some of your stuff's going to be really terrible until you, like, I go back and, I've loved creating little graphics and stuff. And I do a lot of that now with the organization I work for. And I look at some of the stuff I used to create like a couple of years ago that I thought was amazing. And I look at it now and I'm like, God, that was trash compared to what I'm able to do now. But I also love what you said about, finding other like-minded people that you can run alongside with, because when people ask me, why are you collaborating on this? Why you could have done that yourself? And I'm like, it's so much more fun to collaborate. And I feel like the end product ends up being so much better than just taking one person's skill set and growing that. And so, you collaborated with a lot of people. So, a lot of people who join my Tell Your Story episodes are educators, and they're having to work with a lot of people of varying personalities. And I know even when you were in the political world, there's a lot of varying personalities. And so how do you make it work with people no matter who you're working with?
I think, for me personally, it's listen. I think most people don't listen. So really working on that skill set to, like, really hearing what that person is saying. Yeah. And then for me, like, I know when I walk into a room full of people I don't know, I quickly try to find a common thread that I have with them. So what is a common, like, ground that we can have a conversation on? So, finding out their interests, finding out what makes them tick, and then listening to them, and then having that conversation. I've dealt with a lot of situations where I would have to help translate for different groups within my company to, like, work together. And I think it always boiled down to just hearing the person, because so many people want to talk and hear themselves talk or be right. And so if you can work on that skill, I think it will really help out no matter what career you choose.
I think that is brilliant advice. Like you said, no matter what career you're in. Yeah. Well, Weston, when you reflect back on your life and the things you've been through, the joys, the successes, the failure, the happiness, the pain, and you kind of have those flashbacks, what is one that really stands out to you that you think that was really instrumental into creating the man we see today?
Yeah, I would say the biggest one. So I have a 10-year-old daughter, and it was something that was, I didn't expect would happen, and it happened, but it forever changed the trajectory of my life. If Ava was not born, like, I probably would be on some sailboat, like, in some distant land. But because of her, like, I would not be now founding a studio. And so she's been the biggest blessing in my life.
And I cannot believe you just said 10 years old. Oh my gosh. I remember when you shared little pictures of her from Facebook. And so I thought you were going to say, like, oh, she's 6. And I'm like, 10? What the heck? Time is just flying. And so, so what have you learned about yourself since becoming a father 10 years ago?
A lot of it is just, unconditional love, just like really feeling that. And then I would say patience. And also the biggest learning, especially in the last few months, that's been revealed to me is control, like, not like letting go of the things you can't control.
Yeah.
And when I really just let that go, and I've been processing that, it's just made life a whole lot easier. because especially during a pandemic, like I have a lot of friends that have not let that go, and it's just driving them insane that you can't control this situation. But it's letting go, and like as cliche as it is, letting go and letting God. Like that's kind of how I've been living life the last few months, and it's been a lot easier.
So my question then is how did you find yourself getting to that point where you were able to relinquish that control?
To be quite honest, so the last 10 years, I've had very vivid dreams, like where I would just have like the craziest dreams you can think of. And then they started escalating to the part where a lot of like elements were like fire and like water were my dreams. And then I started having these tsunami wave dreams. And that's when that author had told me to be the cork in the waves. And ever since then, like my dreams like kind of went away.
Yeah.
And it's just been a lot more calm and peaceful. So I think, because I love the career path I had, but also it's kind of chaotic. And I think now I'm entering into my new season of life and just knowing that like I just need to trust the ripples, is what this author will say. And so, it's been a monumental change in my life.
I love that, Weston. Well, one question I always love to end all these conversations on is, I believe as people, there are things we hold really close to our belief system, our hearts, they're who we are. And so for the people who are listening or watching today, if they were to walk away with one thing, what would your one thing for them be?
Man, I would say, for me personally, it's finding that higher purpose, like whatever that calling is in your life. Mine is, I want to not only love God and serve others, but also create content that's going to point people towards that direction.
Right.
And so I think for people that are listening is find that purpose in your life. That's when you wake up, you are excited about it. And that can be, even if you don't love your job, it could be, you can have impact on your students, on the other teachers, the principals, because we live in a very lonely society. And, loving people well is like one of the things that could totally change what's happening in our country.
I love that. Brilliant advice. Well, Weston, it was so great to catch up, and I appreciate you. I would say, when you say your goal is to be a connector of people, I can speak from experience that you have connected me with so many cool people that have helped me along my path and just been a part of my career too. And so you are doing incredible work. I cannot wait to see this web series. And so I know I'll be blasting it out whenever it comes out. But thank you for agreeing to come on and tell your story today.
Well, thanks for having me, Todd.
And thank you everybody for listening or watching another episode of Tell Your Story. Remember, you can check out past episodes on iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, YouTube, wherever you get it, it's there. I hope today's conversation with Weston has encouraged you to get out there and share your story, because every story matters.